Yes, hello everybody. Welcome to today's random match for the Link to the Past Randomizer tournament. I'm Wired Wiki and I'm here with Queern. Queern, hi.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going fine. How about you?
Going pretty good. Excited for this match. The first match between Mclagging and AceZer0187. So it'll be a nice drop in to the tournament for them. See how.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious to see how this plays out. I must be honest. I have not seen them play in a qualifier round, so I have no idea what their playstyle is. But I can only expect a good match today.
Yeah, I was just looking at some of their stats. Pretty impressive. AceZer0187 came in 71st, so this is the tier 3 runner. As you know, they're in the third group. They're averaging high 80s points wise. That's very good. Mclagging is 42nd overall out of 126 that did qualify, and averages or is it 128? I can't math. And his average is in the 90s, maybe even high 90s. And he had one race where he got a 101 point total, so he was third in that qualifying race. That was qualifier number 9. So pretty impressive finish. Just based off of that information, I think that it would be fair to say that Mclagging is a favorite to take the match. So if AceZer0187 can upset them in this match, that's a really good start to their tournament.
Yeah, it would be amazing. Never ever count out the underdog in any situation.
Yeah, that's the thing is even when there's a difference between average finish times, I mean, we're just looking at 5 races here in the qualifiers. So this is randomizer, right? It can mean anything. Anything can happen. And you also change the way you play based off of the format and your opponent.
Definitely. And when we start off here, we get 50 rupees out of Link's house. Early map check. Did I see that Desert was a red crystal?
Yeah, I caught that too, and I didn't catch the other ones, unfortunately.
I think they were both regular crystals. I haven't seen a pendant, I think.
Tier 1 magic could be useful in a pinch. And so they got the bombs and the arrows. Looks like they're going to save and quit, probably to the sanctuary to continue on. That would be the normal thing to do, but we'll see if they're abnormal.
I mean, so far nothing spectacular yet, but at least I do have the 50 rupees to buy the 10 bombs in Kakariko if they need.
Yeah, or if they absolutely have to as well, then that gets them pretty close to the bottle merchant money. They're just 10 rupees short. Maybe they can pick it up on the way. Once they pick up the pots that you're guaranteed to get in the well and blinds basement.
Exactly, and also according to Chad, Eastern was also a red crystal, so thanks for pointing that out.
Oh, okay. I thought AceZer0187 was turning around after seeing that half magic. Looks like they might have considered it and then went back for it again. That would be a pretty bold start, is to just turn your nose up at half magic, and you're still on 3 hearts. At the time, they still had green mail. It's you don't know, you never know what's going to come up. But if you're that confident, you're maybe I'll save a few seconds here.
But I mean, half magic is not necessary, of course, but is it really worth the seconds that you win?
It depends. I think that's a great question. It's all about what comes up, right? If you have a fighter sword Mothula fight that's required and you're on 5 hearts green mail, then half magic makes that fight a snooze. And even if you don't have low health, it's a lot faster to do the fight with the fire rod than with the fighter sword. So there's stuff like that where it doesn't often come up, but sometimes when it does come up, it's it's a huge time saver.
Nice hammer. That's pretty early. That's nice to have. At least something you can do a lot of damage with.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of that Mothula fight, Hammer Mothula.
It's rough, but I like that strat actually.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun and very difficult. But I am very sure that both Mclagging and AceZer are familiar with that fight. It's a really I can't understate. I feel like a lot of people have said this, but I can't understate how competitive these tournaments have gotten. You know, there are so many new faces to the tournament settings. People practice like all year long now, so it's very, very difficult to qualify. You have to show a lot of skill to get this far. So we got a bad deal from the bottle merchant and very low rupees to start. So like, you know, implications on King Zora and trying to avoid Zora's domain maybe. But with 6 hearts and blue mail, and we're not even out of Kakariko yet, this is a pretty safe seed so far. I'm calling it half magic, 6 hearts, blue mail.
Also sick it right there because they found the bottle earlier in Blind's Hut. Even that, the bottle has a backup with the blue mail and the 6 hearts.
Oh yeah, oh god. And both of them, this is such a hilarious sync, like exact same rupee count. They both ran out of bombs, they're coming back here. You know, like it doesn't seem that crazy because you're like, of course they opened up the same chest on the same route, but very often, like, you know, you've killed an enemy on the way or did a different tree pull or something that makes you have different levels of consumables. But we're like the exact same, even consumables as each other right now. This is a pretty hilarious sync. And that looked like a blue bottle in the library.
Yes, exactly. I highly doubt if they're ever gonna pick that up.
And they both decided to peek at the race rather than take the item. That's really funny. I mean, I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. It's a common play to peek if you get a lot of progression in Kakariko. But yeah, for them both to have chosen that, I mean, what are the chances? The sync here. AceZer wanting a second look at the map there, I think, totally ruining our speed sync. So thanks for that, Ace. I'm just kidding, of course.
Ooh, a fire rod here. That's also interesting.
Yeah, nice to have like their first projectile weapon. Maybe we'll get to see that in Mini Moldworm Cave, and then it does make some things like a little bit easier of a choice to go do, like go into Skullwoods and stuff. But it isn't quite progressive just yet, not without other items anyway. So we're gonna need a little bit more from this seed to see any kind of divergence. Oh, Mclagging pulling out the B. B in the Mini Moldworm Cave. Let's see if this can save time over AceZer, because they almost came in sync. AceZer just a little bit behind. Going for bomb strats. And Mclagging pulls ahead with his B strats. I think thanks in part to the unfortunate Mini Moldworm RNG that AceZer got.
So we found both the cape and the lamp in Mini
Uh-oh.
Moldworm Cave. You know what I'm thinking, right?
I can guess at it. I've got a pretty good guess. Yeah, and especially in a seed where you have gotten like so very little progression, for those to be, you know, a potentially progressive item is a little bit scary if you don't like to do Aghanim. We're still going to need to find a sword, though, for that to be truly on the table. So let's see where... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Mclagging is off to the castle, probably gonna do escape. And ooh, Ace was doubting, but Ace is gonna go to Eastern. But it looks so we actually see a route diversions.
9 minutes in, our first route diversions. Imagine that. This is likely AceZer just going to check Sahasrar's closet, in which case the route divergence, you know, they might end up just like covering the same ground and taking the same amount of time either way. But if they do choose to dip into Eastern, that could be a significant divergence that has long-term consequences. So we'll see what we find here in the closet. We've got a bottle with a bee, a power glove, and a heart piece. And oh my god, they're walking out. Does this mean they're going to Eastern?
It sure looks that way.
So Eastern without bow, when it's a crystal dungeon, makes me think, you know, I'm just trying to like think about getting inside a runner's head, which is always a dangerous thing because you never know what people are thinking. But I do wonder if they imagine that they need to take a gamble against Mclagging. You know, when you look at the fact that he got a third in a qualifier race and was consistently ranking in the 90s. 90-point total in the qualifier races, you might be thinking like, okay, you know, I would like to find some opportunity to make a gamble. Mclagging setting up a death warp on this ball and chain guard here. And chat pointing out that with that power glove, that does make Aghanim a lot less likely to be required. Because now the only reason that Aghanim can be required is if the Moon Pearl's on the pyramid.
We can all dream.
That's true. Just some dungeon items in the front here for A0. Sometimes people will like dip into Eastern after a Sahasra check just to check the first chest. And if that was their thinking, then they might have seen that compass and been like, you know what, I'm going to go deeper. But yeah, all the items are in the back here, it looks like. And you will have to defeat Armos Knights to get an item. So there's only 2 left that A0 can get without finding the bow here. Meanwhile, Mclagging going through the Dark Cross Room, hoping to find a key so they can go to the back. And they do get it, so they will be able to check the back. We do know that there's another way they could have checked the back side, but this is an interesting play. Sometimes Power Glove can be in this back room.
So AceZer finding the first item in Eastern, which is Ether.
Now that could be very juicy. Like if we're looking at a late bow scenario and Ether, you know, unlocks one of those medallion dungeons, that could be quite juicy, the fact that they dipped here.
Escape was an absolute bust.
Yeah, and AceZer will almost certainly do escape eventually. But Mclagging showing us that the gloves aren't unlocking the back of escape, at least for progression. So the other big possibility that gloves could unlock is either King's Aura or the Death. AceZer just getting another shield there, so had to abandon that route. And AceZer just coming, catching up, seeing what's in the back of escape. makes total sense as a play. Apparently my phone thinks I said "Hey Siri" instead of A0.
That's similar. Yeah, as we saw at Mclagging's screen, Sarasula told us that Ice Palace is the green pendant here.
Well, that's good information. And Mclagging going to Eastern as well. Oh, this is really interesting. I wonder if Mclagging wouldn't have done this play if they took the route A0 did, in which they hadn't checked escape yet. Because finding the Power Glove and then saving and quitting to check the back of escape, it changes the way it's so interesting how when you do things in a certain order, it can push you or pull you in different directions here. But this is good news for A0. Likely good news for A0 because it means that they're not going to have lost time having double dipped Eastern. So as we're just playing some catch up here, I guess let's review what's even left that's in logic. Because we know that probably a Moon Pearl's out there somewhere, right?
Yes. Well, since we picked up the Power Glove, we can go to Death Mountain now. So that's still in play. You can always check Agina as well.
Agina, yeah, that one location isolated off in the desert. There's 2 items on Death Mountain, and then there's 1 on King Zora. And I think that's it in terms of what we haven't seen yet. But you could sequence break those flipper checks. It's just not as possible that they're going to lead to our logical bit of next progression.
And with the current gear they're having, basically only can check Hobo with the flipper sequence break. So is it really that worth it?
Oh yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah, without the Moon Pearl.
I mean, you can check the island on the lake, but that's about it. Unless they find like 500 rupees somewhere. They can also check Zora.
So this is interesting. AceZer did save a bit of time over Mclagging and escape because they have already done the back of escape. They don't need to go to Dark Cross. But it looks like they're probably setting up a Houlihan, would be my guess.
Unless they're walking. I can only imagine.
Is that a 50-50 bomb rock? I'm interested in why they picked up that rock.
I don't know, honestly.
That would be super cool if it was. Who ever thinks to pick up that rock? So the great thing about the Houlihan, you're going to get a ton of money, but unfortunately, it's not your whole way of rupee farming, right? Because you can only come here once, or at least you can only get the rupees once. So if AceZer is planning on using this to go to Zora, they're going to have to rupee farm somewhere or continue on in a route somewhere else. If they're going to Agina here, which looks like they are, then there is a rupee cave on the way. But it would take several trips in and out to get up to that 500 number. So we'll see if they decide to commit fully to King Zora. Mclagging, meanwhile, showing us what is going to be on the Lumberjack. And it's only 10 arrows. And a red rupee on Desert Ledge. Looks like Mclagging is going to show us what those 2 items are up on Death Mountain. Two hype item locations coming up here. They could have progression, but it's not Agina, just a piece of heart. Mclagging about to show us what the old man is going to be. And there it is. So that is Dark World access for Mclagging. I have to think that AceZer is not far behind. Looks like they are going up the mountain as well.
Yes, and finding that Moon Pearl also means that AGA1 is dead.
Rest in peace, AGA1. And Powder and Spectacle Rock. So with that hammer, Mclagging's going to make the choice to, looks like, go back into Spec Rock and pick it up. So pretty much it looks like Mclagging is just barely, basically, the time that it takes to do an Agony check ahead of AceZer at this point. Mclagging looks like they're heading to Kakariko first as their first check. Might be thinking they want to turn in this Powder on the way as well to Village of Outcasts. But this could be another opportunity for divergence here. Oh, AceZer considering the save and quit here before checking Spec Rock. That makes a lot of sense. When they have Hammer and they're thinking about this climb up the Death Mountain, they could be thinking, if I find Mirror next, then I'm just going to have to climb up the mountain again anyway to go check Tower of Hera on the right side of Death Mountain. But this power inside Spec Rock will give them an item. 300 rupees. Okay. For AceZer, that's going to spell the money they need to go check Zora. Mclagging is only like, 100 rupees away from it himself, so I'm sure that he'll get that soon as well.
Yeah, finding the 300, that basically means that you don't have to worry about rupees anymore. Ace opting to go for, I think, Hypecape first, by the looks of it.
Yeah, this is a nice bit of divergence here as well. This play really makes me think that this is a part of AceZer's bigger strategy, where they are looking for moments to diverge from the main route. It could also just be the way that they play, and I'm ignorant about the way that they play because I'm not as familiar with their game style, but I'm a big fan of this route to go K45 first, partially because it is not done as often. Or not K45, but Hypecape. They could be going K45 after this.
Not without a mirror, though.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Oh.
And they find a bow. Both.
What?
Oh, my God.
Well.
On a scale from 1 to 10, that was a D out of D, Hype Cave.
That was definitely an interesting Hype Cave, yeah. And I think with that, Ace is going straight to pod. I can
Love
only
this. Yep. It looks like... Oh, okay, they're not even going to check the pyramid first. They're just going straight to pod, yeah. So, again, really interesting play because, one thought might be, well, I want to wait till I get the mirror since both pod and Eastern are crystals, but AceZer is like, I want to capitalize on this. I know that not a lot of people check Hype Cave first, so I'm going to go to pod, capitalize on the fact that I can do it now and that my opponent might have to wait to do it.
Well, not only that, Pod has 5 items, which is, I think, yeah, that's a good place to go.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not like it's a bad decision to come to Pod anyway, right here.
Meanwhile, Mclagging in Thieves Town, I don't think they've found anything yet. Also not in Village of Outcast. I think so far there has been nothing interesting.
You haven't been counting items very well for Mclagging. I've definitely seen one item and a map and a big key, but I didn't see the first one.
Yeah, same for me, honestly. Also, we still don't have a sword.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're in the Dark World. We're facing enemies that have a little bit more health, can damage us. That is a nice little bit of safety. But again, we're at like 1,000,000 hearts, blue mail, half magic. I'm sure these runners are feeling very comfortable right now with their hammer.
Yeah, they should definitely be fine.
Although on the Mclagging side, we might be seeing a hammer blind fight, which I just love to see. So let's hope that he doesn't find a sword, because I want to see that. Ooh, nice recovery from AceZer there. Like, trying to pick up the bomb, gets damaged by a blue bari, but, you know, sometimes when that happens, you just walk away from the bomb. But immediately goes back and picks it up and gets the bomb wall. Oh, no!
Yeah, Mclagging found the sword.
I mean, good for Mclagging, but bad for us, because we wanted to see that hammer fight. Oh my goodness. The mirror is in Pod.
Wow.
That can be really significant. Once Mclagging does find those bows, again, as I said, it's not necessarily, you know, that you shouldn't go to Pod because you don't have a mirror, but it is a thought that will occur to you. Like, if I find the mirror first, then Pod Eastern becomes possible. But the mirror is going to be inside Pod, so we'll see how this plays out. So far, whether or not, I mean, it's looking good for Ace, but the real question is whether or not this mirror can be converted into an advantage. So there's a few ways that might happen, like, you know, progression being behind the mirror is one of them. But even just being able to route the overworld more efficiently, because you don't have to double dip areas to check those mirror locations, can be quite significant.
Mclagging making quick work of blind. Good fight. And finding game there, ooh.
Yeah, that's nice and juicy. It'd be hard to convert that into an advantage over Ace, as it is a crystal dungeon that Ace will likely do before Turtle Rock or Mire comes into play, but we'll see. And it looks like there is an item on Helma on AceZero's side. But that's okay, because we wanted to kill Helma anyway. And now that Mclagging's got a sword, they're going to come up and check the bumper ledge, and then looks like that they're going to Skullwoods after that. So So far, Mclagging hasn't checked anything that having a mirror would make more efficient. But that could change very soon. So we'll just have to see how this plays out and whether or not this mirror is converted into an advantage for Ace. Mclagging starting with the mummy room here, and gets the flippers.
Flippers, that's interesting.
In a head-to-head match between flippers and mirror, I don't know. I think that, on average, the mirror is going to be more significant pickup, but this is rando, right? Like, anything can happen. And again, this is a Crystal Dungeon Skullwood, so I have to remember that AceZer will come here sooner rather than later. Meanwhile, AceZer is showing us the swordless Helma fight, which seems kind of funny to say swordless, like what does it matter? But normally you hold your sword out so that when Helma charges at you, he doesn't actually deal damage to you. It makes the fight a lot faster and safer, but takes him down very quickly regardless. And Mclagging about to show us a fighter sword Mothula, but they do have half magic. They're starting with some fighter sword spins though.
I wonder, meanwhile, why Ace save and quit after pod while having a mirror and can beat Eastern.
Oh, that is really interesting. I wonder if they had a route in mind before they went into pod and they're just following it, without considering that Eastern is now doable with that mirror on the same route. And Mclagging getting a Master Sword in that pretty fast Fire Rod Mothula fight.
Also means Mclagging has both items out of Skullwoods now.
Oh yeah, that's true. So all he did is check that mummy room and then check Mothula. So that's the fastest you could have gotten both items out of that dungeon. Yeah, this is an interesting thing to consider. Like, it could be that I miscounted items in Eastern, but I'm pretty sure we only saw 2, right?
In Eastern, yeah. Armos Knights have an item.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So
plus it's a crystal, so you need to do it anyways.
Yeah. I'm just thinking like why. Yeah. I guess you need to do it anyways. Yeah, I'm just thinking like why you wouldn't. The dungeon might be faster if you have the boots, but yeah, I don't know if that's the thought there. Well, we're gonna have to ask AceZer after the match. Amazing Ampharos, who I trust, says that boots save less time in Eastern Palace than the walk back costs in time, which I believe that. Especially considering right now we don't have the flute to make that easier. So Mclagging picking up his bows, so we'll see now where he chooses to go with that.
I can only imagine Mclagging also goes to pod from here. Or not?
Yeah, where is he going? Oh, he's going to check K45 and dig game. He didn't check it in his other Village of Outcast route. But yeah, as I said, like, that can be a thought in the back of your mind. You're like, well, if I find the mirror, those are both crystal dungeons, I can chain them together and save a lot of time, It could be that he's hoping to find the mirror here, and if he doesn't, then he'll go to pod. We'll have to see, I guess.
even more protection for Mclagging.
Yeah, this is a super safe seed now. AceZer picking up that item in the mummy area and leaving because they don't have the sword to go onto Mothula. Oh my god, look at how many digs this is.
All that for 10 arrows.
That was like 25 digs or something like that. I don't know, it was an insane amount. Ooh, AceZer, that hit from that Podobo. It looked like that was intentional damage, but, you know, then I hear the beep and then my heart starts skipping a beat too.
You never want to hear that beep. It's so terrifying.
Okay, Mclagging choosing to do Eastern first. So I think that their thought is like, it's not, there's no reason to believe that I'm going to find a mirror in pod. So why not do this dungeon first, and once I'm complete, I can walk down to the portal. Because otherwise he has to walk back to this area twice. So I think that that's the thought here, and I think on average he would probably be right. Yeah, chat pointing out, this is a good point, that like we're talking about like, oh, you know, AceZer could have gone to Armless Knights and didn't, and that might cost them time if they have to walk back. And Mclagging coming to Eastern first just happens to kind of nullify that. I still think it's slightly faster for Mclagging to chain this with pod the way he is, rather than having to walk all the way back from Link's house, but it all depends on whether or not we get that flute first. But this is like small little stuff. I don't think that the game is going to come down to this. I mean, in a perfect world, it would. It would be that close. But there's still so much game left. We're only 36 minutes in. And it looks like it's not going to hurt AceZer too much to leave behind Armless Knights, because it was not a progressive item, at least.
Yeah, Mclagging now going to the portal to go to the Dark World and then go to pod, by the looks of it. Which makes sense.
Yeah. And we get to watch AceZer also pick up their sword and dash my hopes yet again for a hammer blind fight. So at this point, there is, we're just kind of playing catch up a little bit. And I think it's like good to remember that there is this very, very item dense location left, which is Tower of Hera, Eastside Death Mountain, that we haven't yet explored. So as these runners are playing catch up on the crystal dungeons, which makes total sense, you want to be prioritizing crystal dungeons. I've got to think that that's like in the back of their mind is the next play.
For Ace at this point, yes. For Mclagging, not yet, because Mclagging doesn't have both the mirror and the hookshot yet. So for them, it's not really logic. They can't really do that yet.
Yeah, good point. It'll be in the back of their mind in a minute or so, but not quite
exactly.
yet.
For Ace, definitely. For Ace, it should be in the back of their mind.
Yeah, that sword might cause them to go back to Skull Woods now, and delay that mountain check just a little bit. But I gotta imagine there's at least one progressive item up there, right? Like that's like 500 or 600 items that's on Death Mountain right now, if I'm counting correctly.
That is pretty accurate. I believe that.
Counting is my strong suit. Mclagging picking up their mirror. So it's interesting, I just enjoy like trying to imagine what's going on inside the mind of the runner. But this is one thing that Mclagging might be considering is this exact scenario. Some people do decide to go Hype Cape before Village of Outcasts. And if that's the case, they very well could have gone into Pod and gotten the mirror. So I'm sure that they're very nervous about the implications for Death Mountain right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's probably... Maybe we see some... how do you call it? Maybe we see some weird choices Mclagging is going to make, because with that in the back.
Oh,
and
yes.
hoping that weird checks will get them an advantage. But you never know.
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting to consider, because one school of thought is like, oh, Death Mountain, I could have gone here so much earlier. My opponent could have gone here so much earlier. I need to go right away. But it could also be, I'm just going to assume my opponent did come here earlier, so I'm going to go do something else. Like, it depends on how you feel about where you are in the match, and also how well matched you are with your opponent. What kind of person you are, what kind of breakfast cereal you ate that morning.
It's the most important meal of the day for a reason.
Exactly, because it will literally make or break your run. 9 out of 10 tournament champions eat Wheaties. Today's stream is not sponsored by Wheaties, but if I may be so bold as to speak on Speed Gaming's behalf, I'm sure that they would not turn down an inquiry from Wheaties. So all you Wheaties representatives in chat, take that into consideration.
Okay, so Ace is gonna check Stumpy and K45 at this point. And would you reckon Ace would then go up Death Mountain to clear everything, or maybe risk going into Swamp hoping to find a hookshot?
Oh yeah, they have played really, like they've done a lot of really unexpected plays, and that would be a really interesting one. Moment of truth. They're in the select menu, but they thought about it. I think that's exactly what they were thinking about. I think you called it.
There was a little doubt there.
Yeah, there was a little, do I do it? Do I not? I mean, I don't want to praise us too much, but I'm pretty sure we've nailed what's going on, inside these runners' minds right now. Pretty sure that this is now canon.
So far, yeah.
There's probably like something else entirely, like, you know, his dog keeps like interrupting him and he's like having to pet him every once in a while. And we're like reading into this.
I like the dog story, but
Yeah, who are we kidding? We got it right. Who are we kidding? We're great at this.
So Ace the first being up to Tower of Hera and the east side of Death Mountain. And we're gonna see if that is where the progression is.
Diving into Tower of Hera first. So this is following a very old rule of Randomizer, which is ABC. Know your ABCs. Always be clearing crystal dungeons, or ABCCD.
So why didn't Ace go back to Skullwoods then to clear it?
Oh yeah. Oh, I just noticed that. Good question. Because they went down. That's really interesting. It could be for a few reasons. One could be that they thought, you know, some people check Village of Outcasts first and then they go Skullwoods when they don't have something like a sword. So I don't want to do that now that I've missed that opportunity. I'll go there later. It could be that they wanted to capitalize on their mirror advantage and go check K45 earlier rather than later. It also could be that, you know, all they have is Fighter Sword right now. If they wait until they get Tempered Sword, then that's going to be a very, very fast fight. Especially if they have the boots when they come back to the Skullwoods area.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, I definitely saw that Mirror Shield pick up, but I didn't see it was in the other chest. Hopefully chat will help us out.
I think that was a compass. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. So there's still possibility that the basement might have an item. Okay, Mclagging has now caught up with the main Dark World Crystal Dungeon. So we'll see where they head now. And it looks like they're going right to Death Mountain, so right behind AceZer here. So despite AceZer taking down Moldorm right now and Mclagging appearing to be slightly behind, we have to remember that Mclagging has finished Eastern and Skull already. Those are both fast dungeons, but I would give a slight edge to Mclagging here. So even though he did get the mirror second, I would say that he does have a slight edge right now.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. It looks better for Mclagging at this point, but then again, it's still random. You never know what happens.
Yeah, it is very early on in the run. There's a lot left of this game. 46 minutes in. If they absolutely wreck the rest of this game, we're about halfway through. So AceZer coming to the basement to find this other item here. I mean, there are so many progressive items left that you need to finish the game, or may need to finish the game even, that it might feel really weird to skip it at this point. These like kind of one-off really long checks, whether it's Left Side Swamp or whether it's Basin of Hera, like I never, you know, I never question anybody making a choice to do it or to skip it, because it feels like such a toss-up to me. And it's
Boots, okay. I think that means we're a hookshot away from no mode. And, well, hookshot and Titan Smiths, actually.
Yeah, unfortunately, even though Ice Palace, Misery Mire, and Turtle Rock are all, oh my god, that they all are pendant dungeons, unfortunately, we still need those stinking Titan Smiths just to get to Ganon's Tower. Don't you love inverted? Like, it's moments like this that make you love inverted mode, right?
Yes, inverted mode is so good. Also, chat is pointing out Book or Flute for Desert Palace. I completely forgot about that. Whoops.
Right. Yeah, good point. All right, here we go. Here's the most dense item location in terms of item per minutes that we have left in the game. We want to see lots of progress, as Mclagging has the choice whether or not to go into the basement. So this is a very exciting turning point in the race potential. Oh, Mclagging leaving those boots behind. And there's the mitts from AceZer0187.
The Titans. Wow. So, if boots are required for desert, this might be bad for Mclagging.
Yeah, it was almost a good news for Mclagging that there was nothing in Paradox Cave, because if he cleared out Paradox Cave, still got no progression, that might have pushed him back into the basement of Tower Hera. Not to orphan that, but finding the Titans mitts here, he could still go back to Tower of Hera while he's on Death Mountain, but unlikely to after finding that kind of progress. We got 300 rupees in Super Bunny Cave and 20 here from AceZer0187. Now AceZer0187 has played really crazily. Like they've done some checks that we wouldn't normally consider to do. But if they have the medallion for Turtle Rock, I wonder if they consider going independent Turtle Rock. And they do.
Nope. But they're not going in.
Well, they could still be checking first a hook shot before going in.
Fair enough.
But I mean, they're unlikely to. But I mean, they've just been playing so unpredictably to me anyway, that like, you know, anything's possible right now. This blue bar giving them a bit of trouble. Oh, bonking back. Are they hovering?
There is an attempt.
And looks like they're not going to waste any more time on the hover, but they are going to take it into Turtle Rock.
Ace going into Turtle Rock. Wow.
This is bold. This is so bold. I mean, in terms of crystal dungeons that are left, I'm you know, thinking through this here. In terms of crystal dungeons that are left, there really aren't any that he can full clear. I mean, he can go back and finish Eastern and Skull, which he's already made the decision not to do right now. So this is a pretty dense item location, all things considered.
It is. But considering the fact that for Ace, both Skullwoods and EP still have an item, it's still... I get you with the item locations, definitely. And of course, we know way more than Ace does at this point, but...
Yeah, we always have to keep in mind our God vision.
Seems like Mclagging is gonna make the same play. Also going into Turtle Rock.
Oh my god, interesting. Okay, so there's something that we're missing here then. It's... Oh, you know what it is? They're following the chain of logic is what it is. So they're saying, you know, I got that Ether Medallion. My Fire Rod hasn't yet led to progression. There's a lot that's hinting in that Cane of Samaria too. There's a lot that's hinting that I need to come to Turtle Rock. So this is actually like, I think this is a really smart play that's based off of reading where the seed wants you to go.
Fair enough.
So in case what I said was maybe like a little bit too information dense for some folks in chat who might not be familiar with what I'm talking about, there we like to think about the way that the logic works or the item distribution works as unbiased, and that is true, but it depends on your perspective of bias. If your perspective is each item location has roughly the same chance of having any item in it as anywhere else, then that's generally true. But there is a sense of bias from the perspective of when you're running in the seed. As you're running in the seed, there is a bit of bias in terms of if I have an item that opens up locations and that item has not yet led to progression, then it is slightly more likely than other items in my inventory to lead to progression. It's kind of an interesting side effect of how the fill algorithm works, and these runners could be thinking about that and taking advantage of it here.
Wow, ice roll. That's just insulting.
Oh my goodness. Turtle Rock, never change. We love you. So hold up here. With that ice rod, are there any ped possibilities that we should be thinking about? I mean, could be hookshot, I think. Yeah, it could be hookshot.
Yeah, could depends on what's in ice and if the item behind the hookshot is necessary.
Right, yeah, it does depend on the key logic in ice.
Exactly.
It could also be the flute.
No,
the-
because Misery Meyer is dependent.
Oh yeah, right. I'm thinking backwards. So I think it's just the hookshot.
Hookshot is the only thing what keeps Pet alive at this point.
Oh yeah, we're still looking for book. Right. Chat reminds us. We keep forgetting that pesky little requirement to get inside Desert Palace. That's why I was thinking about the flute, because the flute is one of the ways we might get inside Desert Palace. Right, but also chat pointing out that book or flute wouldn't hard require the pedestal unless the other item was in Ganon's tower. We're getting real theoretical here. Oh, and then I'm also dumb because flute would... Never mind. I'm just realizing flute would be needed to pull ped.
It could be book though.
It could be book, yes. Now, of course, we like to just play these theoretical games about what can be on PED. The probability is not that it is there. It is very probable that we're going to get in Go mode without needing to go by PED, but we just like to consider the possibilities here.
Ace with some nice hammer strats on Trinex.
Yeah, this can be a scary fight. Half magic does help.
Yeah, half magic definitely helps, and this is exceptionally scary when you only have the fighter sword to work with.
And Mclagging also entering the fight here. But using Master Sword strats, so gets a little bit of a break. And Mclagging going to show us what the item was here.
Ace is, I think, going to Spike Cave. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, Tempered Sword.
So that was sort of great.
Yeah, so Ace's Master Sword. That was all a huge time sink, unless pedestal ends up being required, which is not gotta feel good. Like, the runners don't know that the other runner also did Turtle Rock, so it's gotta not feel good to get out of that entire pendant dip and have only gotten a sword for your trouble. And Mclagging going back now could also be for Spike Cave. Okay, I think he was thinking about it, but looks like he's going to go back to Basement of Hera. So they will equalize a little bit on the boots front. AceZer did get a little bit of a boots advantage in Turtle Rock, but the boots aren't that significant in Turtle Rock in terms of how much time it can save. And really the big thing is if the boots end up being required or lead to progression in some way, is the big way that Mclagging could lose a lot of time by missing this item here. Chat pointing out that there are still a bunch of early sphere locations that are uncheckable. So there's been some locations that have been open logically for a very long time that haven't been checked, including Pyramid, Catfish, Zora, which has been open for quite a while. There's some flipper checks locations, the Waterfall Ferry. I think we haven't seen the Hobo Under the Bridge. There's a lot of unknowns right now. Okay, AceZer are going to come back and catch up on these crystal dungeons. And looks like they're not going to waste any time having checked the front before the boss, so that's good news for them. So even just having this Master Sword upgrade when they fight Mothula, they will save a bit of time having come back here. It is really unorthodox to have not done the dungeon right away after Thief's Town, since it does have an item and it is a crystal. But in the end, it happened to not contain progression, so the unorthodoxy here will pay off for AceZero if it can translate into a faster fight, which it likely will with that Master Sword. Although they just item me to hammer. Yeah, right. Hammer Moth doesn't matter what sword you have. And RNG not playing nice on Mothula, though, unfortunately. Ooh, Mclagging checking Bonk Rocks in King's Tomb from the Dark World. This could just be because he's trying to route in Graveyard Ledge, which we have already seen on AceZero's side, but it could also be so that he can continue on check Catfish and Zora afterward, which will be new locations for us that AceZero has orphaned a little bit, I would say. I mean, not that orphaned, but kind of. Ooh, 1 heart for AceZero brings down Mothula.
Kind of a clutch situation, but did it well.
Yeah, that was quite clutch. Yeah, the Mothula, the RNG pattern, not playing nice there. Mothula was sticking to the north of the wall, which made it so all of his early hammer hits weren't getting in, and then he ended up deboosting off of Moth in order to get those hammer hits in, which is the strat, but that ate up a lot of his health early on.
And Ace looks like, yeah, they're going to do the blacksmith sequence, I think. Also something we haven't seen yet.
Yes, a little bit more divergence here.
So Catfish having a bottle and the Hera packs with the Cane of Burna, both not super interesting.
Yeah, not quite leading to progression just yet. Bombs here on the Smith. Just red rupee on the Zora ledge. We're starting to get down there in terms of overworld checks. We're going to have to go dive back into dungeons pretty soon here.
Yeah, I think we either see a swamp dip or an ice palace dip. That's going to be interesting.
AceZero saving and quitting with the purple chest here. Having the advantage of having done Cave 45 already, this is faster, especially if you don't have the flute. It's quite nice to be able to do this right now. Mclagging going in the portal here. So I gotta think this is the swamp play, right?
Maybe checking K45 first, because I think Mclagging hasn't done that yet.
Oh, he has. That's where you got the bows.
And pyramid check, of course. Or not, no.
Oh, it's blind Hylia Island check into Hobo. So cleaning up these early sphere items that have been available for quite a while. And AceZero returning the purple chest using that wonderful glitch that allows you to drop it and still return it. But only getting 50 rupees for their trouble. So looks like now it might be heading in the Swamp Palace, however.
Yeah, Ace gonna go for the swamp play.
Mclagging finding a mushroom, so fetch quest. And without the flute, that is a little bit frustrating to find there. But did leave a mirror spot behind on that shallow water, so can just go back into the dark world, walk up the diving board, which isn't there in the light world. Oh, but is also chaining this in with a pyramid ledge check, which we haven't seen yet. I can't believe this, hour 10 in, and we haven't seen so many of these early sphere locations. But it's just a heart piece, or a heart container.
I'm gonna make a weird call, but I'm gonna call book in swamp and then hookshot in desert.
That would be very good for AceZero. Just a heart piece on Mclagging's side. So I believe the thinking here from Mclagging is like, these have been available for a long time. I can safely assume that my opponent has done them by now. So I probably don't lose time if there's nothing here. But I do protect myself from the eventuality that there is progression there that my opponent has had forever by going there now. It just happens to be, however, that AceZero also hasn't done those very early progression spots. And looks like Mclagging is now following AceZero into Swamp, so I think the only other major check they have is the... Oh, no, I'm wrong. Never mind. Oh, yeah, they had to pick up K45, which they orphaned earlier. So I gotta imagine that both runners might feel pretty far behind right now, or at least nervous about having gone into Turtle Rock without getting any progression, which could make them a little bit more prone to taking risks than ordinary. Which could be why we're seeing Mclagging heading in here now to Swamp Palace without checking the Smith's Chain, just as AceZero has headed in without checking some of those early sphere flippers and pyramid locations. Chat calling Raging Reynolds saying that they believe that the next play for AceZero is going to be Ice Palace. I think that'd be really consistent with how they've played so far. But honestly, there's not much left other than Ice Palace. I mean, they could go back in and they could defeat Armos Knights. But other than that, I don't think we have much other dungeon checks or overworld checks to make.
Not that I can think of, no. I think the only things left are swamp and ice at this point.
And here we go. The last check on the right side could be the big key, allowing us to check one more location, but could be progress or could be nothing. Oh, man.
Well, we're going on.
Wow. That just is salt in the wound. But imagine if it's vanilla hookshot, though. Imagine. Take a moment and picture that in your mind with me.
Still gonna go with book.
Ooh.
Close enough.
Yeah, that's pretty much book.
It is desert access. So this might potentially be a forced double dip in swamp.
It could be if this flute does lead to the hookshot. For A0, I gotta think that they're going to full clear Pendant Mire before full clearing Ice, having picked up that flute. But of course, they're going to do Desert first. But thinking ahead, this puts that off for them. And it's probably going to do the same for Mclagging. Chat pointing out that the dream is still very much alive with the pedestal having the hookshot. Now, in terms of the hookshot logic of Ice Palace, some people mistakenly believe that the hookshot can't be in certain locations in Ice Palace, like behind Cold Stare, meaning that pedestal would not be a thing. But that's not true. There is certain key logic that does allow that to happen. However, what that key logic is, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. It's like I've seen it written so many times, and the simplest way I've seen is like, I'm never going to remember that. Come on. Okay, Quake for Mire. So we're not quite going inside Mire just yet.
We are going in desert, though.
Chat calling to think it's going to be Quake in Pyramid Fairy. That would be definitely keeping the dream alive. Mclagging finding out the bad news that he does have to walk all the way back through Swamp Palace. Now, for all we know, this flute could just be, leading us off the scent, right? Like, it could be that the hookshot's just sitting in Ice Palace and this is all for nothing.
Well, it isn't for nothing because desert is still a crystal.
That's true. I guess the flute might be the logical, required access for desert, but it could be hookshot and book in Ice Palace. Not very likely, but it could be.
And it seems the second item is on the Lamolas.
Mclagging heading to activate their flute. I gotta think they're shortly behind A0 here. I would say that this match has evened up a little bit if A0 still does not check those flippers locations and that pyramid location. Then it's been able to equalize a little bit with Mclagging, because remember, it might seem that he's a dungeon ahead, but A0 still has to go back and defeat Armos Knights at some point.
Yeah, Silver's making quick work of the Lamolas.
And a heart container Landmo. This is really getting narrowed down. I mean, I think all we have left, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure all we have left that is in logic is the Pyramid Fairy and Ice Palace, and Checkerboard Cave, which we haven't seen yet. The later that this goes, without us finding Hookshot, the more it's leaning towards Mclagging, because if AceZero is compelled to go back and check those early sphere locations that Mclagging's already done, then that will put Mclagging ahead again. But AceZero coming back to clean up Armos Knights. So we were talking about this theoretical possibility before. Do they save time? Do they lose time having not done it right away, considering the time they gain in the dungeon with boots? Well, this is that weird scenario where they have boots and flute now when they come back and do it. Where I don't know, like, I don't know that they did end up losing time overall anymore. You don't gain a ton of time off of having the boots in Eastern Palace, but you do gain a little bit.
I just wonder what the next play is going to be. If they're both going to go for Pyramid Fairy, or if one of them decides to dip into Ice first. Or maybe Zero is going to check the flipper locations.
Yeah, it could be that they're going to play catch-up. I mean, AceZero having left Eastern for so long and now checking it just after the other 5/6 crystal, I got to think that's what's on their mind.
Yeah, I guess so.
AceZero playing us a little bit of a song here. Nice flute dash. But, I mean, we can't tell. I mean, AceZero has played pretty unpredictably, so we could be totally wrong about this as well. Okay, I gotta say this. If the hookshot is on pedestal, I think my favorite part of all of this is that the ice rod was in Pen and Turtle Rock, and that boots in the basement of Hera would have been required to get inside of Misery Mire. So that would just be beautiful.
Are we gonna see a synchronized Fat Fairy check? Or Pyramid Fairy check?
Pretty close to each other. Yeah, assuming AceZero does not check those orphaned earlier sphere locations in the overworld and goes straight into Ice Palace, which would be really consistent with the way they've played so far. This could be an incredibly close race, regardless of where the progression ends up being. Ooh, Mclagging didn't check Agina. I forgot about that. Ooh, AceZero going for the bomb dupe. Okay, but now they're doing a buffered screen transition to get it. Okay, so I've never seen that particular setup before, but it looks like they tried to drop the bomb on a specific pixel. So if you've never seen that before and you're like, what was that? If you do something to refresh the screen right as the bomb countdown timer reaches 0, then it will teleport to you, which you can use to just like move across the screen a little bit more quickly since you can't normally dash with the super bomb. Also can be used for sequence breaks and stuff. It's quite a fun little trick. And there's a
hook shot. Wow.
So this is a very close race now. Mclagging is going to go in and get that hook shot probably about half a minute behind AceZer0187. And it's going to come down to execution in large part, and also where the big key is in Ganon's tower.
This also means that Swamp was a required double dip.
Yeah, that's got to be at least a little bit reassuring for these runners to find that, okay, that flute chain was useful in some way.
Yeah, I think the only thing what doesn't make Swamp a required double dip if his book is in Ice Palace at this point.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But yeah, we are in go mode at this point.
So now is like time when we start watching for the little things, like those bonks. You know, those tend to be really significant when we're this close to each other. Or, you know, how's your door alignment? Or how soon do you start the dash after a screen transition? Like this small stuff, which you normally only think is super significant in NMG, when the race is this close, can be incredibly significant. Mclagging just about 40 seconds behind AceZer0187 here, it looks like. So that's very easy. That difference can be blown away either through execution or through, you know, the Ganon's Tower big key location.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty interesting seed. Well, I mean, at least the way it's been played out right now, it's really close, and there's not someone like in a significant lead.
Yeah,
it's still anybody's game.
Absolutely, and I mean it's very entertaining for us, and I think it's a really good showcase of who these runners are and like what you can expect from them in the tournament. I mean, I think they've both played very well, and they both showed off very different routing strategies that could be tailored to the opponent, but it could also just be how these runners play and how they think. So I'm really excited to see, like, no matter what happens in this match, how their best of three will continue afterward. Because they seemed like a pretty interesting, very different playstyle. A really cool matchup. So that was a late one cycle for AceZer0187. Oh, but misses the one cycle phase 2. So it gets 2 cycles of phase 1 and 2 cycles of phase 2 here for Argus. Mclagging about to head into the fight. We'll see if they can do better here. Ooh, Mclagging showing off the NMG strat with the poke dashes, but gets a little bit interrupted here. It looks like they might be getting an early one cycle. And he gets the silver arrow kill. So they do make up a bit of time here, and this is like this stuff matters at this point. Mclagging showing off like that they have had quite a bit of NMG practice. I just looked up their NMG time. It is their PB currently, according to the website, is 1:28:53, which is an incredibly respectable NMG time.
Yeah, that's definitely a good time. Also, we're now up to Ganon's Tower.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the big key guessing game is not currently working, but we can't run it officially, but do feel free to put your numbers in chat. Which chest that you believe, which number chest do you believe that we're going to find the big key in?
Speak of that, Corin, what do you think?
Well, I always say 24. I've won with it before. It's my lucky number.
I reckon you get it this time. I believe in that.
Thanks.
I think I'm gonna go with 14.
You might be slightly more probable to win with that guess than me.
I don't know. You can be closer to it though.
We'll see very soon. AceZer almost about to edge G Tower at almost exactly 129. We'll see when Mclagging enters, and that'll give us a good idea of exactly what the difference is heading into G Tower anyway. But the big key location, if there's divergence in their GT routes, could be significant. Honestly, I would hate to see it come down to that, but you know what? Rando's gonna rando. I hope this is just a pure, straight-up battle of execution. AceZer taking a more traditional route of Hope Chest first, going left side, may continue on like the Rando room strat. There is a new meta in the Ganon Tower basement, which Mclagging may show off, where you do Hope Chest, then Compass Room, continue on to Dark Magician Room, which, if that's the case, will gain some time over AceZer. If the big key ends up being on that side, obviously. But it's not, it's Dark Magician Room, so AceZer taking one of the absolutely most optimal routes that you could to the Ganon Tower big key. And that was location number 4, correct?
Yes, and that means Geek got 4. So Geek, congrats on guessing it right.
Oh, Mclagging going right here to the Compass Room. I have to think this is the new meta, which, you know, I hope that they will stop after Compass Room and not go full right. In which case they will only lose maybe like another, I don't know, 30 seconds or so. But when they're already about 30 seconds behind, and Mclagging does indeed mirror and is going to go check the left side now. So that's good. At least he didn't go full right. But AceZer with a pretty big lead already in the gauntlet before Mclagging even has the Ganon Tower big key. Unfortunately, with the safeties that they have, with the swords that they have, the hearts, mail, silver arrows, execution doesn't come into play quite as much as it might in another scenario. So it would be... Mclagging would be hard-pressed to be able to make this time just based off of pure movement and execution and stuff. Unfortunately, I think Mclagging would have to hope that there's a big disaster here. Which, of course, we here in chat and in the comm booth never prey on another runner, but that is Mclagging's hope in this match. And very nice single cycle on that Lambo there from AceZer with those silver arrows. People in chat a little bit concerned about AceZer's arrow count. 4 is all you need for Ganon, so assuming he doesn't miss twice, then he'll be all right. Mclagging now entering the gauntlet as AceZer is on almost the very top floor of the tower. Mclagging having a very nice gauntlet here. I think he is catching up a little bit with this really fast gauntlet, but needs a bit more than that. Oh, AceZer having a little bit of trouble with Moldorm. Also very fast Landwell fight from Mclagging. Seeing some pretty great execution from both these runners in these final minutes of the match, which is always really nerve-wracking. If you're looking at IRC, you know that your opponent hasn't finished yet. You're in the final dungeon of the game. You're like, okay, maybe that turtle rocket dip didn't screw me out of winning this match. I applaud them for keeping their cool in this scenario. 3 hits on that first cycle.
That was nice. Yeah, that was really a nice triple. And a double.
Just barely missed another triple there. Early 3 cycle Agatu feels good.
That's really good, yeah. Very impressive. Knowing that you might have the feeling that you're maybe behind, so you're gonna get more nervous and still pull this off. That's amazing.
Yeah, way to keep your cool. And AceZer dropping into the Ganon fight as Mclagging is almost in the Moldorm 2 room. So they got plenty of health, they got plenty of magic, they have plenty of arrows. As long as AceZer doesn't fall down a pit, it's looking pretty good for them. We might be looking at the upset, where the 3rd tier takes the victory from the 2nd tier. And that would be a great way for AceZer to kick off this best of 3 here. Exactly the kind of win that they're looking for. Mclagging entering Agatu. Let's see how they do here on the cycles. Some interesting patterns here. Oh, just barely misses.
Yeah. Barely misses the triple. And but still getting a 3 cycle just like Ace. So not losing that much time to that fight.
Yep, just a slightly later 3 cycle. Still very good. And AceZer having killed the pig.
Yeah, get your GGs in chat for AceZer.
Finishes 136.08. I unfortunately don't have the official SRL time in front of me. But good games, AceZer. As Mclagging drops into the fight. Let's see how this Ganon fight goes for them. First couple of phases down pretty quickly. Easy to do with the butter sword. Really, the best time save on Ganon here is if you can manage to get like a double, a triple, or even, theoretically a quadruple silver arrow in this final phase.
I would like to see that today. A quadruple silver arrow. Just do it.
Come on, we didn't get to see the hammer blind fight. Give us a quadruple. Of course, we don't get the RNG for that, but that is a hard double there with that pattern and manages to get it.
Yes, Mclagging finishing this up, so get your GGs in chat for Mclagging as well.
Walk through the door at about 137.38. We're going to find their official SRL times for you real quick here. Official SRL times, very close to what it says on the timers. It's 136.10 for AceZer, 137.40 for Mclagging. So that's exactly what it says on the screen. So that was a really close race. Very well done to both runners. I'm really excited to see how the rest of their best of 3 plays out after watching what they were able to do in this seed.
Yeah, the next match is going to be interesting between these guys, definitely. it was a really close seed for both of them. They both made their own decisions basically. There was a lot of route divergence, and it ended up being really close anyways. So it's really good, and I can't wait to see the next match.
Yeah, let's see if we can get them in for an interview here. I'd love to talk with them about the race. Yeah, I think just like summing up this matchup, I mean, I think that I'm curious to know, you hear from AceZer, like if this is a normal playstyle for them, or if this is kind of suited to the matchup in some way. But yeah, really interesting decisions to route different, take risks maybe, and it ended up working out for them really well. But at the end of the day, like their routes weren't that divergent. I would say the biggest difference between them was that AceZer didn't do the Zora's Domain checks and the early Flippers checks and the Pyramid check as well. So that is not a huge thing. And a lot of it like just came down to the order that you did things in and also the execution along the way.
Fair enough. That's definitely true.
So for folks who, this is only the second day, I believe, of the group stage, so maybe still getting familiar with how this tournament works. Probably haven't seen a second game between runners yet. I think there might have been a couple that were restreamed. But how this works is you've been placed into groups based off of how you seeded in the qualifier stage. So, for example, Mclagging was in the second tier of players, having finished between 33rd and 64th, and AceZer was in the third tier, having finished between 65th and some number that you would know if you can do math. Then from that, the second and third tier will face each other in a best of three scenario, but they get to make a slight modification to the rule set. So I believe in this case, it's going to be Mclagging who gets to decide what, if any, change they would like to make to the rule set, whether it's, making it into a 6/6 or making it into a fast Ganon, standard versus open. And I believe there's also one other setting they could choose to do. So AceZer having taken the first match, we're going to see a second match, and then if it continues on to a third, so if Mclagging were to finish this were to win this second match, then the third match, AceZer would get to decide, do they want to continue to add another thing, another change, reverse the change of their opponent. So interesting to see how this plays out between the two of them. But now joining us in the booth, sorry for the technical difficulties getting in here. Good game, AceZer.
Thank you. GG's, Mclagging.
Looks like Mclagging is almost in the booth with us here. They're just getting their mic set up, it appears.
Okay.
Yeah, how does it feel to take the first game in the group stage of the tournament?
It feels great. I didn't expect to win. Obviously, Mclagging finished better than me in the qualifiers, and I watched some of his races, and it seems like he definitely is better than me execution-wise. So I definitely felt like an underdog, but it can go a million different ways when you play rando. You never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely, yes. And now joined by Mclagging. Good game. That was so close.
Yeah. Hey, GG Ace. That's a good one.
GG.
So I gotta imagine that you were also watching that on restream at the end there, or at least the few final moments. Yeah.
Yeah. looked pretty good, so I'm at least happy it was a close race. So.
Yeah, it was very entertaining for us. I know that it can, like, I almost would rather lose a game by 30 minutes than 2. But yeah, you should feel very good about how you played. That was really awesome to watch. You both had very different approaches to the seed, which was always really cool to see. Yeah, and we just love to hear more about, like, we did a lot of theorizing in the booth about, between Wired and me, about what was in your mind as you were racing the seed, what could have been going on for you. So yeah, just love to hear more about, like, what inspired your routing strats. Did that change based off of what you found? Did you change that based off of your opponent?
For me, I guess it definitely changed based on a couple of mistakes I made, especially early on. When I forgot that I had Lamp and accessed logically to Death Mountain to get the Moon Pearl. So I was thinking the only things left in logic are Agina and Zora. So I did Houlihan to start getting some cash, and then went to Agina, and then on the way there realized that I had other things I could do. So that mindset of being behind kind of caused me to take a few more chances.
Aha, yeah, we were theorizing about, like, why that could be, because we did see you take some really unorthodox plays that ended up working out for you in a few situations, for sure. You both went into Turtle Rock, Pendant Turtle Rock, and didn't end up finding any progression in there. At first we were surprised, and then we thought we might have understood the decision. But yeah, do you want to clarify for us, like, what the thought was there behind the Turtle Rock?
For me, we had the Cane early, Mirror Shield, Fire Rod, Cane of Samaria, and Ether. It's like, that all points straight to Turtle Rock. Then it figures that it's completely empty for the first time ever.
Except for the Ice Rod.
Yeah, the Ice Rod.
Yeah, that was great.
I was laughing when I saw that.
Yeah, that's about the same logic as I had too. I saw the Mirror Shield and the Fire Rod, Cane, all that. But also for me at that point, I had left like a few, I guess you could say, like, pockets of items, like with the Zora area. And I knew there was an item in Eastern Palace, an item in Skullwoods. There was a couple things kind of scattered that I was really hoping to check a very dense set of items to find at least one of the items I was still needing.
Yeah, I don't think I had a lot left. I had a lot of things scattered around, so I figured Turtle Rock, those many items that are there, and could full clear it besides Trinex. I thought chances are I'm going to return up here, so I might as well just clear it now and see what's there.
It's really interesting to watch in many ways how you made similar decisions where very obvious, like, other path could have been taking. So in many ways, your route was very similar, but then that made it even more interesting when it diverged. I hope you both get the chance to watch this race back. It was really entertaining. But I also had a question too about for you, AceZero. Like, there's that moment where you first originally go into Village of Outcasts, or you first originally get Dark World access. And if you have Hammer as Dark World access, you may choose to go Village of Outcasts, or you may choose to go Hype Cave, and you went Hype Cave and got the early bow, went to Pod right away. So we were wondering, is that like a normal play, or is that also because you felt a little concerned because of the early game?
My Dark World entry is pretty much always depending on the seed. In this case, I didn't have a sword yet, so I didn't want to go into Skull Woods and then have to come back with a sword, which of course I ended up doing anyway. But I tried to avoid that. And the same thing with Thieves Town. I'm not very comfortable with hammer blind fight. I didn't have a cane or a sword yet, so I wanted to hit those after getting a sword, ideally. So that was my logic there.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I was personally disappointed that we didn't get to see the hammer blind fight and that you both were bailed out in the attic.
I was waiting for it. It's like, do I remember how to do this? It's been a while.
Yeah, if I hadn't gotten the bow, I probably would have went west to Village of Outcasts instead, and that would have changed a lot, of course, having not gotten the mirror from Pod at that time.
Yeah, speaking of that mirror in Pod, right after you beat Pod, you opted to not go into EP right away to finish EP as well. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Oh, that was just a complete absent-minded mistake. I didn't even realize that. I noticed somebody mentioned that in chat, but I didn't even think of it even until it was mentioned in chat after the race that I could do that.
Yeah, that's what I was guessing, is that, like, you know, sometimes when you go into a dungeon, you have like a route of what you're going to do afterwards in mind, and if you pick up an item there, you might not think about like how that impacts the route or whatever. But it ended up working out, because when you came back, you had flute and the boots, so I don't think you really lost much time overall.
Right, yeah, I'm glad it ended up working.
And of course, luckily there was no progression on Armos Knight, so it was just getting the crystal that mattered. So remind me, Mclagging, do you get to choose a modification to the game now for your second?
I do, and I'm not sure what I'm gonna pick yet, or if
Yeah.
I'm gonna change anything.
No pressure to make you decide here in the comm booth.
So we'll see. It'll be something fun, I'm sure.
You know, I was actually confident enough that I was going to lose this race that I already had picked out what I was going to change.
Well, you know, you keep those dreams alive. You might always lose the next race, right? So you might get your chance. Yeah, and considering how close this race is, I mean, I think that you both do play the game differently. I noticed quite a few differences in how you approach the game in various ways. But I think that it makes for a really interesting match, because you also do play the game very similarly in many ways too. So I'm really excited to see what happens in your game too.
Yeah, thanks. I'm definitely excited for the rematch.
Yeah, I'm excited. Should be a good one.
Great. Well, do we have any final thoughts, Wired?
I would say nothing much. I just want to say once again GG to the both of you, because it was a very close and entertaining race, and yeah, I'm happy that I got to commentate this match, especially with you, Quern, as a co-commentator.
Yeah, thank you. It was a lot of fun. It was great being in the booth with you, and yes, thank you so much for entertaining us, Mclagging and AceZer0187. Best of luck in the rest of the tournament.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
One more question though. Do you already know when your next match is gonna be?
Probably Thursday or Friday, I think.
Yeah, I have some work obligations Monday through Wednesday, basically. So sometime at the end of the week, we haven't figured it out yet.
All right, cool. And we're definitely gonna keep an eye on that. And yeah, once again, thanks for the race. And any final words, Quern?
Just looking at the schedule here, want to give folks a heads up that looks like our next tournament group stage match is going to be coming up here at 10:30 Eastern Time, which is in just a short 45 minutes, if I can math correctly. And that's going to be between Brewers fan JP and Frostbite 3030, both of which are some pretty hype runners, very skilled runners, big names that you might recognize. Frostbite, I believe, if I remember this correctly, took a first place in one of the qualifier matches as well. So this is going to be a pretty interesting matchup. That comes on Speed Gaming 5, which I believe is this channel, at 10:30 Eastern. So stick around for that. But otherwise, thanks so much, Wired Ricky, for coming with me. It was a blast. Thank you, Mclagging and AceZer0187, and thank you so much to Lopoi for helping us with the tracking of the match. Very much appreciate it. And
Yeah,
have a good night.
Yeah, Lopoi, I can't even talk. Lopoi did an excellent job on tracking. Thanks for that. And once again, thanks, Quern, for being a co-commentator with me on this race. And yeah, see you all later. Good night, and have fun at the next match you're gonna watch.
Good night, everybody.